title of this the title of this paper is Unsupervised Fake News Detection, a Graph-Based Approach. And this is joint work across four of us across three countries. Shiva is a PhD student at IIIT Delhi. I'm Deepak, the presenter from Queen's University Belfast, and Cheng is from Nanyang Technological University, and Tanmoy is with IIIT Delhi as well. And this work was funded by Spark, which is a program for international collaboration from MHRD in India. So fake news is not something that needs a lot of introduction. It was chosen as the Oxford Dictionary's Word of the Year in 2016 when it came to the forefront in the context of the US presidential elections, and then it was chosen as the Collins Dictionary Word of the Year in 2017 shortly thereafter. So fake news is generally interpreted as news that is intentionally false. So it is intended to spread some kind of misinformation. So it takes those kinds of things where you're looking at aspects where people have a misinterpretation of something or misunderstanding of something, and they talk in full earnest. So those things are generally left out of the definition of fake news. But of course, the definition is fluid. There's no single standard either. So let's look at unsupervised fake news detection. Unsupervised fake news detection is the task that seeks to differentiate between fake news and real news without using historical labeled data sets. So we don't have the luxury of using the labels to identify what characteristics characterize fake news and what characteristics are non-fake, etc. So unsupervised learning is the task of identifying without the aid of labels as to what fake and real news would be. And how can you do that without having labels to be able to understand what fake and real is? So most unsupervised fake news detection techniques make use of some high-level assumptions and or heuristics in order to distinguish fake and real news. And some of these heuristics or assumptions are only used for seeding, in a sense that they can be used in order to just bootstrap the process, and the process needs to maybe go through an iterative refinement phase or alternative heuristics in order to achieve a comprehensive labeling across the data set on fake and real axis. So let's look at unsupervised fake news detection and some existing methods. And the first method, probably among the first methods, is from Yin et al., which is published in IEEE TKDE Transaction Knowledge Discovery and Data Engineering in 2008. It is heavily cited as well. So it says that a piece of news is likely to be true when provided by many trustworthy websites. So this is the high-level heuristic that they use in order to distinguish between fake and real news. And then there was a AAAI 2019 paper by Yang et al., so I've copy pasted some content from that paper with respect to the high-level assumption that they use. It says that verified users who may have large influences and high social status may have a higher credibility in differentiating between fake news and real news. I'm not so sure whether they use it to the fullest extent, but they do make a differentiation between verified users and non-verified users in order to determine what is fake and not fake. And there was a work by Orlov and Litvak in 2018, which was targeted towards political propaganda and misinformation in the political sphere in general. So they make use of an assumption that propagandist fake news is produced by groups of users who write political posts that are textually and temporally synchronized, which is something that we'll also use, textually and temporally synchronized and aligned with the official vision or party line. And our paper, which is what I'm going to describe, makes use of the following assumption. We assume that sets of articles posted by users at similar times through textually similar posts are likely to be fake. And we don't entirely trust this assumption. We say we use this assumption for seeding, and we rely on the persistence of orchestrated behavior, which would make this assumption true in certain cases, especially where there is usage of black market services for propagating fake news or organized by troll armies. So I'll show you an example here of coordinated fake news, and this is a case from India where there is a political targeting by a political party against another. So all of these three tweets, as you can see, are all having extremely similar textual content. So there is a little bit of difference. For example, the first tweet tags a couple of handles, but the second tweet doesn't use any tags and just uses the name of any other country. And the third one does not use any tags at all. But as you can see, it's all text. It's all heavily synchronized. This is 8:10 a.m. and this one was the second one, 9:36 a.m. and 9:43 a.m. So the way these operate. Or the propaganda machine for this particular case operates has been well understood or has been well analyzed by people in other spheres. What they do is they create a Google Docs with a number of small variations of the same message, and people who the troll armies, so to say, and they pick up some of these variations and tweet. And they are apparently paid as well, and there are rumors that they're paid like 2 rupees per tweet, etc. So it's a very small amount, but it's kind of significant when you do that on a consistent basis, right? So you get a lot of money, and this was unveiled because unveiled in the case of in this particular case where some of these Google Docs which were meant to be only shared within those groups accidentally were set to public viewing, and so some people got access to those Google Docs, and you can look it up. I mean, there are a number of blog articles written about it. So this is quite prevalent in India, and we assume from the earlier paper that was focused on a Russian case that it's quite prevalent in certain other countries as well. So going on, our method is called GTUT. It makes use of graph, textual, and temporal similarity within unsupervised learning. So let's look at the setting, the data setting that we have. We assume that we have a set of articles, we have a set of users, and users tweet these articles. And so establish a link between the users and articles by way of a tweet, and the tweet itself could contain some extra text associated with it, along with the URL of the article. And there is, of course, some metadata associated with the tweet, which is basically the time of tweeting and the time zone, etc. So this is what we assume as the data that we have. We have users, we have articles, and we have tweets of users posting those articles along with some extra content, and the tweets themselves have a lot of metadata associated with them. So we employ a 3-phase approach. The first phase, we identify by clicks, and we'll come to these details of these phases soon. We identify by clicks and use synchronous posting heuristic that we introduced earlier to identify a seed set of fake news and real news. In phase 2, we use by click similarity, user similarity, and content similarity to propagate the labels from just a seed set to a broader set of articles. And in phase 3, we propagate the labels even further to cover all the articles in the data set. We'll look at each of these phases in detail. So the first phase is about by-click finding. So what are by-clicks? By-clicks are actually pairs of sets. So in this case, we have a user set and an article set. So this is a pair of sets, and the pair of sets where all possible edges between them exist. So the edges only exist across these sets. So each user, so if you get a set of 4 users and a set of 3 articles, which is what is illustrated in this figure, is a by-click if and only if an edge exists between each user among those 4 users and each article among those 3 articles, right? So by-clicks are formed by a pair of sets where all possible edges exist. An edge exists when the user has tweeted about the article or posted a link in social media about that article. So we go to we describe how we use this we identify by-clicks from the large bipartite graph that we have across users and articles, as we showed in the previous slide. And then once we have identified by-clicks, we do some scoring, right? For each article within a by-click, and this is only within the context of a by-click, we compute the temporal coherence, which is how close in time were the posts relating to the article within the by-click. And we compute the textual coherence. So an article is tweeted maybe 10 times within the by-click, or posted 10 times on social media within the by-click. We look at those contents of the posts and see how similar in content were those posts. Once we have identified the textual and temporal coherence for each article, we now aggregate it to the level of biclicks. So the TT score, the textual and temporal coherence score of a biclick, is simply the weighted average of the textual and temporal coherence across the articles that participate in that biclick. And now some articles might participate in multiple biclicks, right? So we now translate the score into an article level score and say that the TT score for an article is the average of the TT score of biclicks in which it is involved. Okay. So once we have done that, we have identified we have associated each article with a TT score, and only those articles that participate in at least one biclick, otherwise they don't have a TT score. So if you look at the increasing axis and TT score, it goes from 0. It's negative. It's a non-negative score, and you can now position articles based on where they associate, where the TT scores lie. Right, so you get this sequence and you associate articles in that axis. And what we do is, whenever there is high TT score, we assume that that's evidence of synchronous posting behavior, and we label that as fake. And whenever there is, and on the other end, you label a similar fraction as non-fake. So you get the label seeding for both the classes. We use 5% of the data set from either ends. Those are chosen as seeds. So we still don't have labels for this middle portion, right? We've said that those articles which are textually and temporally extremely coherent are going to be fake, and those articles on the other end are going to be a seed non-fake articles. Now we come to phase 2, where we expand the labels to biclick articles. So we have labeled a few of those articles based on the score, based on the seeding heuristic. Now we have a set of articles from within biclicks which look like this. Most of them are not labeled, a few of them are labeled because of our seeding heuristic. Now we create a graph. This is a different graph from what we did in the earlier phase. We create a graph where where articles are linked to by edges, and there is a weight associated with each edge. And the weight on each edge is basically a weighted sum of 3 factors. The first factor is the Jacquard similarity of the biclicks that they participate in. So this article might participate in like 3 biclicks. This article might participate in like 4 biclicks. So you take the sets of biclicks that they participate in and take the Jacquard similarity. That forms the first factor, and the sets of users who have tweeted those articles, and the Jacquard similarity gives you the second factor. And the third one is simply the textual content similarity of those articles. We assume that maybe there is a likelihood that fake news have more fake news that news articles that are very similar to fake articles are going to be fake as well, right? So the first one makes use of the biclicks. The second one is just a user level, and the third one is doesn't make use of users at all. It just is a content level similarity. So having formed a weighted graph, we now perform label spreading to get all the articles labeled. Okay, so once we do this label spreading, we get labels associated with all the articles in biclicks, and so we now have a set of red articles which are labeled as fake, and a set of green articles which are labeled as non-fake. Now in phase 3, there is a typo here. It should be actually phase 3. We now expand the labeling to to cover all the articles. So we have all the articles within biclicks, and there are a few articles that do not occur in any biclicks, and that's a significant fraction actually in some of our data sets. So we have these blue articles which are yet to be labeled. Now these articles do not participate in any biclicks, so we cannot use the earlier score in order to define edge weights. So instead we use simply the next 2 factors, which is the user similarity, the Jacquard similarity with the user sets, and the content similarity, in order to identify an edge weight between the articles in this graph. And then we once again we use the label spreading heuristic in order to get all the articles labeled, and eventually we get the labels associated with each article, right? So so now we have progressed from having a small seed set of articles labeled through phase 2 to label all the articles in biclicks, and to phase 3 to label all the articles in the data set. So just to summarize it, in phase 1, across these phases, we are progressively increasing the set of articles labeled. We first start with the seed set, then all the remaining articles within biclicks, and all the articles outside biclicks as well. So for experimental evaluation, we use two data sets. One is PolitiFact and the other one is Gossip Cop. You can look at the article, you can look at the paper in order to see the details of these articles. And the baselines would be UFT, which was a IIII 2019 paper, and Truth Finder, which was from IEEE TKD, which was cited 600 plus times. So these are items that we covered. These are research works that we covered in the initial slide. And then we also use a majority voting heuristic, which is used as a baseline in one of these papers as well. And for evaluation measures, we look at precision, recall, and F-score for the real and fake classes, and accuracy, which is a fraction of the data set that is correctly labeled. So if you look at the PolitiFact data set, we have the precision, recall, and F-score for the true and fake classes. I'm sorry, the table just got cut off. I don't know why, but in any case, as you can see, our method, which is GTUT, performs better on all of these 6 cases: 3 evaluation measures and 2 classes, all the 6 combinations. Whereas on Gossip Cop, it's slightly different. We find that our method performs well in 4 out of 6 cases, whereas it falls behind sometimes slightly, sometimes more drastically in certain other cases, where the Truth Finder method, which is the 2008 paper, outperforms it. And this, we believe, is because we used in the label seeding the label seeding phase, we used equal sets of articles to be labeled as seed fake articles and seed legitimate articles, whereas in the Gossip Cop dataset there is there is a higher skew between the true and fake classes, and this, we believe, could be the reason behind the problem. But of course, we need to do more investigations to be able to confirm that. And for both the data sets, we plot the accuracy in a table, and we get a much higher accuracy. As you can see, the accuracy for the PolitiFact is 10%. We are 10 percentage points better than the next best one, and for Gossip Cop also we are 10 percentage points ahead, 10 percentage points better than the next best method. And as you can see, in PolitiFact, the next best method is the UDF method, and in the case of Gossip Cop, the next best method is Truth Finder. So as you can see, if you just take a single baseline method, it's not 10 percentage points, it's slightly higher than that. So we now summarize this talk. We address the task of unsupervised fake news detection using user behavioral heuristics for seeding and similarity-based heuristics for spreading. Proposed a method that makes use of graph-based techniques all through the three phases, and we empirically illustrated high accuracy on real-world data sets. And that brings me to the end of this talk, but we have an upcoming book chapter, and actually an upcoming book called Data Science for Fake News Surveys and Perspectives across some of the authors in this paper as well. And this will be out in fall 2020 and published by Springer. But there is one particular chapter in that book which is on unsupervised methods for fake news detection, which talks about in detail the trade-offs and the open frontiers in fake news detection when you're looking at unsupervised learning, and also some of the broader points around the ethical issues and so on, because in unsupervised learning you're trying to make use of some external heuristics in order to make the determination. So it's quite a detailed overview about unsupervised learning, and it provides a number of pointers also as to what directions of future work could be more promising than others and so on. So thank you. That brings me to the end of this talk. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email at deepaksp@acm.org. Thank you very much for your attention.